Welcome to Mojo Talks, where we explore the world through stories. I'm Mayur Channagere, visual storyteller and your host. Welcome to Mojo Talks with Mayur Channagere. And today we have with us Dr. Prakash Sontakke, a renowned slide guitarist, composer, and a Hindustani classical musician. He is the founder of Hindustani Sangeet Vidyapeeth and has contributed to Grammy-winning albums and collaborating with musicians across genres from classical to jazz to fusion. He has performed over 3,000 concerts till now. Prakash sir, welcome to the talk, and I'm so glad that you took time to join us today, and I'm so looking forward for this conversation.
Thanks so much, Mayur. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm loving every moment of it.
Awesome. We're just getting started.
Yes.
So, Prakash, I just want to jump straight to the questions. You come from a rich lineage of musicians. Your parents were musicians. Your mother, if I'm right, played more than 17 instruments, and
Correct.
she was had a wide range of this thing. And even your wife is Chitra Sontakke is also a musician. So I just want to know, did you always wanted to be a musician? How was it growing up?
So what happens is at home when you have music available for you, like a basic reference, it's not specifically, everything is not taught to you directly, but you pick up everything just when you see your father or mother teaching somebody. You pick up a lot of music just like that.
Correct.
But the real challenge comes when you want to say that you want to become a professional. Because for you to become a professional in any field, you require some amount of personal approach, personal rigor, personal routine to be somewhere. Because only being a musician's child and just saying that, okay, just because my mom and dad are musicians, I can also be a performer, it's not that easy. It's like the nepotism world doesn't work here in this. Because the audience is the best judge. If you go there and say that I am somebody's son and I am going to perform something, but your performance doesn't stand to the mark, people will be immediate to point out that first, saying that, oh, ashtu doddu musician maga, what nonsense he's playing. So it becomes a negative also.
Yeah.
So for you to become a professional, ultimately, you have to decide that yes, it's a tough journey that you have to take.
You have to create your own identity.
Absolutely.
But also with the lineage comes a burden. Yeah, like you said, just because I'm so-and-so's son doesn't necessarily. But then the audience expectations are also there that, you come from that background. So how much of a pressure is that?
So there is a lot of pressure if you take it, if you take the pressure. Because what happens is right from day one, it kind of happened naturally that I decided that at any point of time, I'm not going to say whose son or whose disciple I am till somebody actually comes and says, oh, that was a lovely concert here. Whose disciple are you? It makes more sense when people come and ask you, whose disciple are you?
So then you're proclaiming it.
I found that, your music was very interesting. Whose disciple are you? That makes more sense than to first say I am somebody's disciple and then crushing your expectation. So that way I think my parents were never forcing me to toe the line of exactly how they had pursued the music, because when I started performing music, I had so many elements of my own.
Correct.
Which I added of kind of, not knowing that I wanted to be different, it was just happening naturally. Because when I was, as a kid, going to a convent school, the convent did not know Rag Bhupali and Rag Yaman. Convent had a Michael Jackson, and I was listening to Michael Jackson, all those elements only. So for me to go to the school and claim that I am from a great family lineage made no sense, because nobody in the convent cares like what is Bhupali and what is Yaman. So for me to find a parallel existence as to what to do, which will correlate with the person who is listening only to Michael Jackson, also was a big priority for me. So that way I started blending certain bits of my own music with my own thought process. And it kind of worked in a positive way.
And so you found that balance of Western and...
I wouldn't say that I found the balance. I would say that I kind of started experimenting very early. because there was something that I had to make something interesting for the audience. It was not that the audience is available at any cost. People will sit and listen. It's not like that.
Correct.
You have to make something interesting for the people to listen to you. If you have that viewpoint, then you will ultimately end up with a lot of co-relatability.
As an artist, we also had to kind of balance out, right? One is what the audience want to listen, or we have to give what they want.
Correct.
And then there is something for your own soul. And I believe that 90% of whatever we create comes from within what we want to. So how do you find that? How do you find that inner rhythm?
See, the simple thing is the previous world, let us say something as maybe 10 years back or 20 years back, the world was not based out of algorithms. The world had its own algorithm with which you will try to match your algorithm, and somewhere if it matches, it works. So you kind of gave audience what the audience wanted, but also you gave something that you wanted. And then slowly you believed that the audience will slowly start liking what you want.
Yeah.
Because if you are passionate about what you want, you will somehow or the other convince the audience that
It's seen in the music.
it's seen in the
It automatically comes
Correct.
into the...
Because if you do not regard and respect your art to that level, ki bhai, what is the passion behind it? That's a word, the passion comes so many times in our discussions. Why do we say passion? Because passion is something which is an innate thing. It comes from an inner liking. It doesn't come from external, like, I cannot pretend to be passionate about something if I am not passionate about it. The audience will see through it very fast. Like, you are giving a great speech on how to be, but you cannot live it to a reality. So the passion comes through into the audience, and the audience starts liking what you do.
Correct.
That's the reason all the old rock stars, sometimes you'll be wondering why they behave like that in a particular way, and you think, what is that eccentric behavior? That eccentric behavior was kind of a gateway for the audience to get into their mind.
Yes.
Start peeping into, like, what is it that he's seeing that he's finding it so exciting? That's the best way to bring the audience to your side.
And with that eccentricity, they became great performers, not just musicians, but they were great performers where they were able to relate to the audience and get the audience to relate to them.
The mindset, how to convince somebody about what you're doing is beautiful, is by repeatedly making them come to your perspective and see the world through your perspective. And that's a small journey for some time, after which the world is completely synced into your thought philosophy. So nobody comes to my concert with the expectation that Prakash will play the same set of compositions which he played last week. Same thing, no. But they'll come like, oh, Sontakke, what will you do? So they have that expectation that something will be uniquely different. And it's our responsibility to live up to that.
Live up to it. And again, we were talking about passion and experiences. Every great art, any form, be it novel, be it books, be it music, be it paintings, even films, are inspired by our own personal experiences, right? Unless you experience life,
Correct.
the ups and downs, you will not be able to reflect that into your music.
Correct.
And that is very important. And
Absolutely.
as a musician, how do you experience it?
It's very, see, how you experience something, process it, then make it a part of your own vocabulary is the interesting journey. Because everybody might have the same experience, but everybody will conclude something else from that.
They'll have their own interpretation.
So yeah, like sometimes when you think that you have been ignored on purpose, you realize this. So what do you do from that? Do you go and start shouting that please listen to me, please listen to me? That is one way to look at it. Or stepping aside and creating something so beautiful that people are forced to listen to you.
Correct. Similarly, music. I mean, personally, when I listen to something like morning when I go for my cycling, there's this, sometimes I listen to Beethoven. Or even before any recording, there is a set of music, collection that I listen that kind of calms me down and then kind of get into it.
Correct.
And it's like layers that have to be peeled. But can that be developed? Or is that something that you're inborn with it?
I believe that listening is a very, very beautiful process and it can be developed with time. What happens is, listening without prejudice is something which has to be developed. What happens is you are being briefed by your friends. Hey, that's boring, man. This is damn good. This is amazing. You are looked at so many references. So 90% of music, when you start listening to it, will come with your internal mind notes. Like somebody said, "Oh, tumma boring apaidu." So after some time, when you are listening without prejudice, you'll start developing your own kind of notes about it. Like, what is it giving to me? So you should be in a space where you are able to listen to anything without prejudice. Just let the music just play. Because what could be calming for you could be very disturbing for somebody.
Yes.
What could be very, very aggressive for you will be absolutely cool for people.
Yeah.
So I sometimes go to these coffee days and then there's so much of good music playing. I'm like, on what visualization is this being played like that so loudly that I can't even have a conversation with the person in front of me? Like, "Hi, namaskara, how are you? How are you?" Arey, the so much. Like, I'm like, are you going to take the coffee mug and do this whole exercise? How will you drink coffee at that such an? But that's how it is. So people are kind of subduing that thing, like, okay, let me ignore it. So you are playing music to people constantly, which you are teaching them to ignore. What a horrible state. You are giving music to people which is constantly being given for the sake of ignoring it. People don't realize that. Like, sometimes I always tell people, what kind of a music should you play in events? Like, what kind of event is happening? Just play something. And then you'll see that the energy transfers to the public very quickly. So even people, when they get into flights, for the first 20 minutes of the flight, when you put on the in-ear music, the music kind of takes you into the space of nothingness. Like, there's nothing happening around you. The feeling also is given through the music.
Yeah.
And then you kind of settle down because now you're not thinking about anything else but just the fact that you're there. So it's like a lot of music has to be thought about what is to be given. Everything is not good. Just do the same thing for everything. We are ending nowhere.
And in fact, even when we look at some really good movies, films, right? The background score can make or break the movie.
Absolutely.
Right? Or the scene for that matter.
Correct.
Right?
It's like, I had this strange experience once when I was doing a background score for a film. The brief was very typically to me that the whole story was written around 1950s. So the music had to be around 1950s. So I sat consciously, and 1950s, what are the instrument? I went to Google, studied what are instruments. Police band of Mysore was the only one which was existing that time. So piano, saxophone, to some extent some drums, that's all, in 50s. So I made the entire music around that only. And I thought that I had done a great job till I met the director.
Okay.
Director had not given me any brief and I had done the whole score, 8 episodes. Then the director came and said, Prakash, I would want to have a discussion with you about the music. I saw the music, it's nice. Okay. Then when the director came for the discussion, she said that the music is good, no doubt about it. But I am not, the music is based out of 1950, but I am not targeting a crowd of 1950. I am targeting a crowd of 2020. Okay. 70 years later, what is the consumption of the music according to the world today? You have to give me some relatability to today. You had done a great job for 1950. Time, yes, no problem. So then, along with the old background score, I had to again make something for 2020.
So it was kind of a
which
fusion
correlated,
of time.
Yes. And then I realized that how important it is when you make a movie, that if you have to make the movie relate to a 2020 audience, you just cannot do something of 1950 and leave it there and say, I have done a great job.
Correct.
So relatability, even for the content to so that now people listen to the background score and they say, oh, that was interesting, but ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ 1950s ತರ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು. So the doorway, like Miles Davis used to say that if jazz is the message, funk is the vehicle. And I used to find it like, what a strange philosophy. How is that possible? The funk was taking the music to you, and then when you observe the music, it was jazz. So that is, directly if I tell you, come and listen to 2 hours of jazz, you'll say, Appa, devre, kapadi nanna, bedve bedappa idu, and you'll run away. If you do not have a grounding for it.
Then it's difficult.
And suddenly somebody who listens to only Kannada songs of Rajkumar, if I give him enough exposure of jazz for 1 hour, he will hate me.
Yeah, correct.
Yell sikakisbitrappa nanna. But if you have the background for it, then you slowly start exploring. Okay, Because the first step into something is the biggest challenge. After the first step is done, the second and third steps will be followed by you. How to make somebody take the first step into? So I believe that as a classical musician, if I can do something which will make somebody take the first step towards classical, I think it's a huge battle won.
Awesome.
Second and third steps they will pursue.
They'll figure their
But
path.
first step only, if I say, oh, this is very tough, very difficult, better be serious, observe nicely, he will run away. He is not going to come to me. Like,
But I think that this philosophy is slowly creeping in now, or in the last couple of years, right? Where there is a lot of liking for our classical music mixed. What is that? Bandish Bandits,
Correct,
for example.
correct.
Right? So somewhere they have now, there are quite a few such
Absolutely.
films or series that have come, where the younger generation has started listening to
correct.
classical music. So that comes back to what you were saying. So it's like getting them to into the door,
Correct.
and then figuring out.
See, what happens is, right now, classical is being liked on the basis of an intense dose of skill. Like, somebody, so much of fast speed of tan, like, oh my God, you are shocked. And out of wonder, you like it. Like, that's your only feeling. Then there's somebody doing super fast konakol. You're like, oh, what is that? So you are being dazzled by it. So you are coming into it. So later on, what do you pursue? Like I have students who come to me, like who will watch Bandish Bandits, and they'll come and, sir, मुझे ये सीखना है. हाँ, tell लगे. अरे इसको first class you are asking me to teach this. This is a journey of at least minimum 5 years if you are a good student. 5 years will take for you to reach there,
that.
to start thinking of that, how to do it. Right now you will only copy that. So classical music will ultimately become pop music. Popular. Like the only reason somebody will come to learn is, sir, मुझे सीखना है. क्या सीखना है? मुझे यही सीखना है. अरे बस इसको सीखने के लिए आज शुरू तो करो तुम. You start your journey today. Let us see where you will go in 1 year time. नहीं सर, मुझे यही सीखना है directly.
So they're not ready to go through the
Yeah,
rigor.
so they will get bored very soon.
It was introduced to the world through the greats of Zakir Bhai and Ravi Shankar ji and all of them.
Correct.
But in the last few years, the popularity has increased. Like, we see the number of Grammy nominees from India, number of Grammys that we have won. You have collaborated on many of those Grammy this thing. What do you attribute that to? Why suddenly
It's very simple. So ultimately, thanks to globalization, all those things which our people took for granted, like what is classical? I don't know, man. It's too boring. Like you have to practice 20 years to start with something. But the world outside valued classical in a much bigger way because it valued the Indianness of the element. Yes. Today, globalization basically means your Indianization. You are more Indian today than 20 years back or 30 years back. You are more proud to say, I'm going to a Kumbh.
Yes.
You are now feeling proud of going to a Kumbh. Previously, you would have said, I went to Woodstock. It's amazing. But today, you will say, I went to Kumbh. Half the Swedish and the European fellows will say, we came to Kumbh.
Yeah.
So that exploration is happening now in Indian culture, that people are coming and seeing the intrinsic value of things. Like in Indian classical music, spiritualism was a part ingrained into Indian classical music. Till the point of time that classical musicians thought that the best way to appeal to people is, okay, this is the only way people will appreciate classical music. Tali baja. So you are going to impress only 10 people in the front row.
Small niche.
Other 90% people like, I don't relate to this anyway. What should I do? But the outside world will say, okay, let me see some peace in this. Because they have seen the tumultuous times of life, the industrialization of things. Now let me look at what is peace of mind. I will look for peace of mind only when I understand what peace of mind lacking is.
Correct.
If I am only looking for making money, running out, getting some more money, I will not look for peace of mind. So those cultures which are able to go through that grind earlier started looking at peace of mind. Then they came and saw Indian classical music, Indian spiritualism. They saw, this is really amazing.
Correct.
This is something which we was never told.
Which was missing in their own culture.
So they came looking for it.
So one of the things that I've started observing, many of the concerts that, though I might not really understand the music or this thing that I've enjoyed, is where these artists kind of give a kind of a context to the piece that they're playing or the dance that they're performing, and then suddenly it's relatable. And like, I wish more artists start doing that.
Yeah. See, both ways it works. It also works sometimes if you are in a stage where you have the ability to appreciate something that you don't know also. So the concept of an experience being a different experience altogether from an imaginary experience of what you imagine it should be. Then you kind of like, okay, I don't know what this is. Let me just go there and face it. That is a greatest stage of reaching, where you are having no prejudice.
No preconceived notions.
No preconceived notion. But that happens very less. Because today's generation is becoming very clear ki I'm going there, what is the objective? Objective 1, objective 2, objective 3. Did all my objectives meet? Maybe not. So what to do? So if you did not meet all your objectives, I won't do something. That's a horrible thing. In our life, I think when we were growing up, 90% of things experienced in life, not knowing what it was.
Yeah.
Till we finished our graduation and walked out, we never knew what we want to do. Today, kids, by the time they are 7-year-old only, they seem to know what they want to do. Wow.
That
You have already got a vision of what you want to do. Amazing. I'm happy for you, but surprises to me that you have closed the door for so many experiences in life already.
But Prakash sir, at least you said graduation. In my case, graduation, then I got into the corporate rut, and it was only at the age of 34, 35 that I realized that is not something that I want to do and switch. And you're right. So we have... lot has got to do with what we experience. Unless you experience, it will not come out in any of your creations that, whether it's photography, music, dance, whatever it is, that experience kind of defines the output. The other part of the question I had was, so since you've worked with so many collaborators, so many artists, and I know like even the greatest musicians, they churn out music like this. How does one stay creative, or how does one deal with a creative block?
See,
or what is your process?
In India, a creative block can be removed by two things. One is money. If somebody is paying you for something, incentive, your creative block automatically goes away. You think of 1,000 ways. You make 1,000 versions of the same song.
Correct.
This will be appealing, that will be appealing, this will be appealing. One thing. Next thing is surprising yourself. It's very difficult to surprise yourself because your brain knows what you like.
Correct.
When as a composer, the very first few versions which I make of a tune are things which I like.
Yes.
And then comes the briefing of the producer, briefing of the director, briefing of the cinematographer. All these briefings will come with different versions. The third or fourth version, finally, the fifth and sixth versions will be completely out of the blue. Whatever I snatched out of the blue. And after a good discussion with everybody, what all will work for whom, surprising yourself is the best part. If you are able to surprise yourself, nothing like that. I believe that in my concerts, I want to surprise the companies who work with me. I always do that. And sometimes I find unpleasant expressions on their faces like, "Sir, plan madililla, sir." Yeah, that's how you will grow.
Correct.
We grew luckily because we went with a senior musician who was nice to us, spoke nicely to us. Come here, we'll perform. And suddenly on the stage gave us some very surprising thing. And we were caught unawares, like, deer in the headlights.
The excitement of that.
The excitement of learning.
That is
what we were open for.
Yeah.
Today, that's what I'm telling people, that be open to that learning. Don't go with a preconceived this thing, that this is what I'll do, this is what I'll do, this is what I'll do, that's it, we are sorted. Surprises are not there only.
Yeah, they're not ready to take
ready
it.
For
they don't want to rock the boat, in other words.
Ishte madabeko, ashte madabeko, that's all.
On the note of, you mentioned on stage, suddenly you throw something. And if you have good collaborators, the energy of that is different. The music that comes out is different. I just want to extend that. to Chitra ma'am. Like, I'll be very honest. My worst critic is my wife. All my children for that matter. Oh, photo thinking, oh, it's fantastic, this, that. And they'll say like, oh, okay, I've seen better. Right? Sometimes your ego hurts, but then we also understand that they come from a good space. They expect better things from you.
Correct.
But being two musicians, it must be a tough challenge.
Yeah, it's see, what happens is, Chaitra she's trained in classical, she trained under my parents only. So, my parents have been, sometimes I get a feeling that they're sometimes partial, like they knew that Chaitra is a more stickler to the tradition. So, they gave her some more content than what they gave to me also.
Okay.
I used to sometimes remember, oh, these old people, they cheated me. So I used to get that irritation sometimes. But it's a fact that they saw that, okay, she's a sincere practitioner of the art. Okay. She will not experiment too much like this fellow. So they used to sometimes stick to this. So some of the compositions which she has learned from my parents were not even taught to me.
Okay.
So I used to wonder like, oh, why did they not teach me this? They thought maybe he will not take it seriously. Something like that. But as being critical about certain things, I always like the fact that if somebody criticizes my work, I have never been built to like, my ego doesn't hurt. I take it like, okay, it's not interesting. Okay, let me think about interesting ways to make it interesting. Make it interesting for them also. Yes. Like, I'm not talking about an absolute layman. Absolute layman can give you some feedback altogether.
Correct. But when it comes from a trained...
Because, see, there are differences between saying that a music album is made from a songwriter's point of view and a music album is made from a musician's point of view. Two might be totally different things, but the ultimate consumption is music, no doubt about it. But for a songwriter, stuck in the mountain, stuck in the mountain, they can go on saying stuck in the mountain for 10 times and people will still say, wow, what a song.
Yeah.
But for a musician point of view, like, okay, after 2-3 times, change the chord, make something else happen.
Move on.
Make something exciting. But for the songwriter, hey, I don't want to do all that. This is good enough for me. What do you do?
Correct.
So there you had to like, okay, the songwriter's song, okay, this is your choice, fine, do ahead with it. So an absolute layman's response, difference between literature and language. Anything can be literature. Even if somebody who is not educated can produce literature. Like, this is how I think. My thinking goes like this, like that it is. And I write it on like that also.
Correct.
And you will appreciate links. Somebody has written a very heartfelt note. Wow, he has written exactly like how he speaks. It's literature. But for an expert of language, when you show him the literature, he'll find you thousands parts of wrong. Yeah. There's something wrong there. The language is not correct. This vowel is not used correctly. This is not there. So, how do you bring these two people together? Absolute literature, absolute language can never come together. An absolutely perfect novel of literature and language will be read only by the person who wrote it.
So, does that happen with you and Chitra ma'am?
Many times. Like, if I think of something, some tune, and I make something tune, she'll say, this won't be exciting for students. Sorry, I thought it's a nice tune. Students are educated beyond this now. Make something which is more interesting. And then you have to think about how to interest a student who has learned for 5 years now. How to make something interesting for a student who has learned 10 years. How to make something interesting for a student who has learned only for 6 months. Correct. All these three cannot be the same. You cannot make one composition which will interest a student of 6 months, 12 years, 15 years. No. You have to make different compositions. Correct. But will the student like it? So you have to get into the minds of the absolute practitioner as to who is going to finally sing this and then compose it. So it's quite tough actually, because to get into the minds of people, it's not a pleasant space. It's not a pleasant experience all the time. Correct. It's very boring. Like, and like a child will sing this song. La la la, Suraj ek, Chanda ek. That, remember that song when you were small kids? Tare anek. How beautiful it was. Yes. Today, if you look back at it, that's the only reference which you get for a child to sing.
Yes.
It is beautiful. Today's child also will correlate to that and sing that song. Yeah. So it's timeless.
Timeless.
So somebody has thought about it deeply enough to make it like that. And the Suraj ek, Chanda ek, it's not going to give the same feeling as to how the child's accent.
The emotion is not there.
As a musician, if you are versatile enough to understand who is the target audience of this composition and be able to be true to it, you'll achieve something. Don't try to think that you will achieve everything in one composition. Make 100 compositions. 80 might be boring.
Correct.
20 out of this 80's experience will come interesting. Then 5 out of that 20 will come absolutely beautiful. Then 1 will come which will define your work. All these are different things. Every work will not define everything that you do. And every work will not even reduce your work into something. Because everything will go into a different catalog.
One of the things that I've been very curious to know, how did slide guitar happen?
Yeah. Slide guitar is actually my mom's instrument. Like if you can say that in India, one of the first few women slide guitar artists, my mother is one of them.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I would say one of them, she is the only one because I don't see in my own conscious example where any other woman slide guitar. Later on, her disciples, some people came up. When she was playing this and she was exploring this, at home I was watching the Hawaiian guitar version commonly being used in the house with the slide guitar and down, 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 down. And then one day I suddenly saw Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon live performance.
Okay.
And I saw Gilmour. No. I was like, oh shit, this is always a slide guitar. But the same slide guitar I am learning Rag Bhageshri at home. But Gilmour is playing
Correct.
Great Gig in the Sky. So I was like, oh, how are two separate musical styles existing on one instrument?
One instrument.
That was like a big revolution in life.
Wow.
And that started me off on that path of trying to understand music in every context. Like I listen to any song, in my mind it is translating directly in the form of swaras. So like da 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 ni sa re ga re. No, I'm just telling you the notation of Every Night in My Dreams. Titanic song.
Correct.
But I'm telling the whole swara version of it. And if I tell you that, you'll think this is bhajan. Might be a bhajan. Yeah. What's he singing? Then I tell you, no, this is the Titanic song. You'll be shocked, huh? How is it possible? Yeah. Because everything exists in the form of swaras. Any tune somebody plays, bow, 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 bow. I listen to every song of Coldplay and everything plays to me in form of notations only. It's a sad space to be actually. You can't enjoy it, but then you have to suppress your creative instincts and all that and listen to music as it is.
As it is. Do not break into it. Do not,
My dad used to say that. That whenever you go to listen to music, listen to it like an absolute fan.
Oh, okay.
Do not evaluate. Don't analyze.
We stop being in the moment. So I'll be very honest. There was a phase where for me, everything was, technically,
correct,
compositionally, light, color, whatever, it has to be perfect. I think over a period of time, I've decided to let go of that.
Correct. Same thing as a composer, when you listen to somebody else's composition, the very first thing like, kya hai, yahan pe kyun guitar use kiya? Arey, what is this? Why is he using keyboard here? Nonsense. After 3-4 days, if it's just playing in the background, you start listening to like, oh nice. It's nice. So, you have to grow into it. Anything with consumption of art is not like when we were young, we used to buy a cassette for one song which became famous.
Correct.
The whole cassette was bought for that one song. Rewind, play the same song. Rewind, play the same song. Same song. Till one day you are far away from your deck, the second song also played. And then by the time you went to switch it off or rewind, this also sounds interesting. Okay. So a cassette was explored for a time period of 6 to 8 months. Right. Today, thanks to the algorithm world, this is what you like, this is what will be played to you.
And
you will never grow out of it. It'll bombard the same material which you like, taka. And then 3 days later, you don't even remember what you like.
And that's also, kind of started influencing today's musicians and artists, right? I mean, now they're creating content. They're not creating art anymore.
Correct. See, previously, when you made art, some art became content. Some art remained as art.
Correct.
Some art became timeless. All categories existed with the same person. Today, you are forced into believing that all those categories are gone and only replaced by the word content.
Correct.
Then you have to be very free and fair to yourself and say, you made a song, nobody's listening to it, it's content. It's there. Somebody listen to it someday.
Someday, ashta.
Ashta. In an album, if you made of 10 songs, one song is clicking very well. After 6 months, you'll see the ratings for the second song also coming up.
Because the
After
artist,
6 months,
now as an
after
artist,
2 years, like it has happened with my own album, and Progressive Raga.
Huh.
After releasing Progressive Raga, almost 5 or 6 years later, I would get feedback from somebody saying, Prakash, I just heard this album of yours, man, beautiful. I said, man, I told you about the same album 6 years back. Oh, same one is it? Oh, beautiful, man, I liked it now. After 6 years, he found time to listen to it.
Or maybe after 6 years, he's actually in the mind frame to enjoy it.
Correct.
Right?
Because it's something which has to go in subliminal like element, like you are listening without purpose.
Yeah.
Then you start observing compositions in a better way.
Just to carry on from that, right? In terms of collaborations, very crucial. Either you can stay individual, create your music, but then if you want to recreate something larger, you got to collaborate with other artists. And you have collaborated with people across genres. What, according to you, is the most toughest part? I'm talking from a completely creative perspective because when I've had the challenge many times when I'm working with my teams or with other outside collaborators, we have a vision, we have a thing, and sometimes we can get very anal about it. Right? No, I want it. This is how it's going to be.
Correct.
But then sometimes you have to break the mold to get out of it and then accept that, right?
With my philosophy of collaboration first is to listen to what that other person has done, a lot of their works. So if I listen to say 5, 6, whatever works, if they have done that many, I listen to a lot of their works to kind of understand as to what is the soul of their work.
Correct.
Once I understand the soul of their work, then it's very easy for me to work with them because I am not going there with a dictation board. I'm not saying, listen, take down this point, this is what I do. Then you do this. I don't go like that. I have heard 10 compositions of this man. I know what this man likes. So I'll say, hey, this is, your song, this particular song. I like the thought in that. Very nice.
The reference point.
I can do something above it. I can pour some cream over it. You make the coffee. I'll put the cream on top of it. That's done. So there the collaboration becomes interesting because you are giving that other person also the equal space.
Yeah.
Some of the collaboration like I did with Eraldo Bernocchi.
Okay.
It's an Italian musician. I have still not met him. We have released an album just by collaborating on, I'm one of this Spanish blogs of top 100 modern guitarists of our times or something. They had interviewed me, put my deep interview. And the moment that interview got published in some Spanish magazine, this guy saw that and he had heard one of my previous works in the ECM album. Okay. And he immediately went crazy to get to contact me and he sent me an email within 5 or 6 hours of that article release.
Wow.
And he said, Prakash, I like this thing which you have done in that album. I'm seeing an interview, very impressive. I want to work something on it. I said, okay, let's do. So he said, how do we go about? I said, send me a basic idea of something, a structure. After which I will do some things, I'll add certain things to it and send it back to you. After that, what do you think with that? Do you continue like that or you change the course? And within the end of, I think, an year, exactly an year, we had an album ready. And we released it. It sold 50,000 copies in Europe.
Wow.
It's a huge thing because selling 5,000 copies in Europe itself is a big thing.
Correct.
So I have people from all across Italy writing to me like emotional notes, like in their own language, like, Prakash, I heard this is so beautiful, wow. Then I had to go to a translation and see what they have written. But they have connected to that because we both were sincere about it. Yeah, so we were sincere about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely sincere. Like, I've thought that beyond this is not going anywhere. Like, so I would tell him that, Ronaldo, I think we have reached the composition's end. Let's not go beyond this. It will be like extracting too much of juice out of the same thing. Right. Let's not do that. Yeah. And you'd say, okay.
So somewhere you have to take a call to say, this is it.
Yeah.
Because I think that applies not just to music. I mean, a lot of startup founders that we work with or talk to, the biggest challenge they face is that they don't know when to stop. Like they're burning cash, or they're drained out, burn out, whatever happens, they don't know when to stop, but then you have to learn to let go.
It's tough. It's very tough because if you are in working in a 9 to 5 job and tomorrow suddenly you decide to become a musician, and then 1 week passes by, 1 month passes by, 3 months passes by, nothing, nobody's calling you for a gig. You're like, oh my God, 3 months already, I have not, no salary, nothing. I'm sitting here, nobody's calling me. Oh my God, I'm such a great guy, but nobody has my value. Let me go back to my job. In 6 months, you're back to your job.
We've seen that happen.
So I'm sitting here, I'm from 22 years, nobody has called me for anything. Whatever is coming by is coming by.
Correct.
Now, how have you sustained for 22 years doing the same thing? It's your problem, your headache.
Yeah.
Nobody else is interested in that story. It doesn't interest them like, ಏನೋ ಹೊಡ್ಕೊತಾನೆ ಕತೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾವನೆ ಹೋಗಪ್ಪ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ ಏನೋ ಕತೆ. But we know the hardships. And we have taken it because we wanted to take it.
So mentally we prepared ourselves.
It's sometimes it's so insulting, okay? Like you have spent 25, 28 years in the field. Somebody who is there in the field from 25 months is being pitched along with you. And you are wondering, like, does that guy even know what this is all about? But he's pitching right next to you. And somebody is telling me, Prakash, I went through the resume of this guy. He's amazing. But do you have that experience? Arey bhai, I am here from 28 years. This guy is there from 28 months. He's using jargon which you understand maybe.
Correct.
But I am a musician who has been there a longer time.
Yeah.
I've seen this. Now, I can go to any kind of audience and perform something which will somehow impress them. I know that. Nobody thought Metallica would come up with something like Nothing Else Matters.
Yeah, correct.
Whenever you heard Metallica, all those power chords and all that, and suddenly, Nothing Else Matters. Oh.
And that song is so relatable across.
And the whole world loved it.
Yeah.
People who loved Metallica, for 2-3 days will have argued like, what is this? Metallica is doing this baby-like song. 2 days. Third song, you'll be like, something is there in that song. You don't know. You appreciate it. That's half the battle won. You don't understand. I go for wedding concerts sometimes. I'm playing a Shine On You Crazy Diamond with tabla. Peacefully. The listener is like, sir, ಇದು ಯಾವುದು ಭಜನೆ ಸರ್ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಕೇಳ್ದಂಗಿದೆ ಯಾವ ಭಜನೆ ಸರ್ ಇದು I won't tell him Shine On You Crazy Diamond. ಯಾವುದು ಹಳೇದು ಭೀಮ್ಸೇನ್ ಜೋಶಿ ಹಾಡಿರೋದು ಅದು ತುಂಬ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಸರ್ ಟ್ಯೂನು. Then he will analyze after 20 years that was Shine On You Crazy Diamond being played. That format. ಅದು ಯಾವುದೋ ಸಾಂಗ್ ಬಾರಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ರು ಸರ್ ಅವತ್ತು. Fine. You don't know what it is, but you liked it.
You liked it.
You did not oppose
touched the chord.
That's it. So I would want listeners in the world to listen to a Michael Jackson, get out of a Michael Jackson song, listen to a Coldplay song, get out of a Coldplay song, then listen to a Bhimsen Joshi, get out of it, listen to Basaraj Rajguru. Why? A Bhimsen Joshi and Basaraj Rajguru are any lesser than a Coldplay? No.
Correct.
They were just on their entire merit, they held the audience for so many years.
And each concert would last. And it
3,
was
3, 4
pure,
hours
pure
and you are
music.
just sitting glued onto your seat just in a state of meditation. The old joke used to come, like Mangalore. The world of Mangalore is known for Yakshagana.
Correct.
So Michael Jackson comes to Mangalore, he's performing 2 hours, 3 hours, and he still finds people sitting and looking at him. He's like, oh man, I'm done. My concert is done now. And people are still sitting there. So Michael Jackson finishes his concert, say, I'm so thankful for you guys to have come. My concert is over now, you can go home. Then say, okay, nindu mugita item iga Yakshagana untu adu tadi. So that was the level of Yakshaganas. The love for Yakshagana was so tremendous. And if you study Yakshagana, it's such a beautiful piece of art. It is absolute impromptu.
Yeah.
No dialogues are by-hearted there. Everything is created on the spot.
On spot.
The Yakshagana artist will give you dialogues which are relatable today.
Yes. True. Even now when you go and watch them,
Correct.
it's they use the same philosophy.
Correct.
They don't move away from it, but then they make it more relevant today to the audience, to that minute.
So our folk music has always been beautiful. It has never been like, what is it relevant for today? It is relevant for today only. And 10 years later, again, the folk song will have some other element to it. The they start with this. Then they will come up with topics of today. matters of today. They'll just take that loop of giya, giya, ra, giya, giya, start with it and tell you all the stories of today and the relevance of the story today. That's beautiful.
Prakash sir, now what's exciting on the table? New projects?
I'm quite interested with my collaboration with Tawfiq Qureshi.
Wow.
Tawfiq ji is a very senior musician.
Yes.
And I'm quite excited about that actually. And we're doing some projects together. Then my project called Vividha. The term Vividha was coined by Dushyant Sridhar, a great Sanskrit scholar.
Wow.
I asked him constantly, I kept bugging him saying, suggest something which is eclectic blend of music. He said, Vividha is a good name. So I said, okay, that's Vividha. So Vividha will be performing at Nita Mukesh Ambani Culture Center
Oh, wow.
on the March 15th.
So what can the audience expect out of Vividha?
Lots of Hindustani classical music based fusion. Everything will have a Hindustani classical element to it, but there will be a lot of other elements flowing in and out repeatedly. I'm not telling you specifically that this is what I'm going to play,
Correct.
but it will be open to, you can introspect it in a different way. There will be Hindustani elements, there will be folk elements.
Wow.
I have taken typical folk elements of Indian music like Chhattisgarh side, Devas, Madhya Pradesh, all those folk elements, made it into a fusion. So, I mean, basically, I'm going to take you to a small trip of how beautiful Indian classical music is with experience all across the world.
Wow. Will Vividha be available online?
Yes, I think the concert happens, they give you the link for sharing it online also.
Okay.
So you can go and watch it online as it is happening.
Nice.
And then, of course, it will be available on the YouTube also, I think.
Oh, fantastic. So, Prakash sir, thanks a ton for doing this. It's been a wonderful conversation of your roots to your evolution, to creativity, music, and lot of things where it transcended beyond just music. You know, right? It's kind of relatable. So, thanks a ton for doing this. It's an honor. And everyone who's watching, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Dr. Prakash Sontakke. Keep your mojo alive.